Wow, listen to those stories. And for me, this is probably the most complex issue that I have. Like many of the other stories, I started my sexual education in a place of absolute denial, dismissal, and uh, and in a complex world, because I was on a farm where all the animals were having sex. So the animals had sex and had babies, but the people didn't have sex, or they didn't talk about having had sex. And so the confusion that generated for me was just amazingly incredible. And I even remember when I internally knew that I was bisexual, and how I also internally knew that that was not a subject that I could bring to the table and talk about in any way with anyone, uh, except it would be a total excommunication of me in many ways, that I would have been totally rejected and been demeaned for the rest of my life. So I learned in many, many ways how to hide those parts of me. And in learning how to hide, it took me into becoming, a world-class athlete, because athletes are so virile and they're so strong and they're so masculine and they're all of that. And but it took me outside of myself. It took me into worlds in which deceit and secrecy and lies were just the way the world worked for me. And my sexuality and all of that was raging, and took me to many different places with many different partners, and all of that was held in secrecy for most of my life. Only the partner that I was with probably knew what was going on, and the rest of them had no clue. And how I learned to use that to my advantage. I mean, I didn't, until I did start doing this work, I couldn't see how I was using all of those things to an advantage as much as I could, and at the same time being in denial. And this work has helped me sort of get out of denial. It's helped me find what are my real drives, what are the things that really turn me on, what are the things that turn me off, and how do I navigate that world with the rest of my life? Because for many years, sex really controlled a lot of my life. And now I get the opportunity to look at those things without shame, without blame, and to see the impact that it's having on me, to try to find ways to talk to my partner of 15 years about sex in a completely different way. And it really has given me the opportunity to become more conscious and more aware. If I don't deal with this energy, as Heidi likes to put it, that's inside of me, then it will control me. And I don't want it to control me. I want it to be a part of me that I can love and experience and express.
Thank you, Judge. So my story, I feel like I showed up in the world as this little kid who just wanted to love and be loved. Or stories about me being like a 2-year-old and like climbing from lap to lap to lap and just trying to snuggle with anybody and everybody would let me. There's this little kid who just had this bursting energy in him, showed up in this world where that was not wanted, that was not welcome, that was not acceptable. And I got the message really strong and really hard that to keep that stuff hidden, because nobody wants it. And so I learned if I wanted any kind of touch or tenderness or access to sexuality or relationship, then I had to figure out exactly what my partner wanted and offer only that to become whatever it was that they were wanting. And my desire for sex and touch and connection was so great that I got really, really good at it. I became a really great partner, and I was able to connect with a lot of wonderful people, but I never showed them who I really was. I always had the mask on. I never told them what I really wanted or where I was really coming from. Because the belief was if they actually knew, they'd be horrified. They'd be disgusted. If I wanted something they didn't want, they had to squash what I was wanting. so that it wouldn't make them uncomfortable. And I got to where I always ended up feeling unseen and unwanted and unloved. And after having sex, I often felt like a dildo, like I was just being used for their pleasure. And it was much later in life where I finally got fed up with that and said, you know, I'm not willing to do that anymore. I'm not willing to hide. It was almost like I was put myself in a cage to protect other people from me. And like you put a tiger in a cage long enough, eventually the tiger's scared to leave the cage. I was terrified to leave the cage, to tell people about who I really am. And it's through Eros work where I was able to really claim and speak about and start to enjoy all aspects of my sexuality. The part of me that is interested in men, the part of me that wants to be dominant, the part of me that wants to be submissive, the part of me that's super sappy and sweet and just wants to cuddle and watch Disney movies, all that kind of stuff, really owning it. And it was scary to talk to my partner about that. And it brought up a lot of our stuff. And being able to then go and take that struggle back to the group and get the unconditional support that it's really hard for a partner to give one another, kind of healed both of us bit by bit until we could really start celebrating each other for who we are and celebrating the desire, even if we choose not to act on the desire. And gave us the trust in one another to start experimenting and doing stuff we hadn't done before, and enjoying some of it and not enjoying some of it, and that being okay. And I really want that for everybody. I want everybody to have a chance to identify and claim and celebrate all of who they are, and have a space where they can go and talk to other people about it, where they're going to be cheered on and supported and not shamed and not blamed and not made wrong and not told they shouldn't want what they want or do what they do. And I think the world would be a much, much better place if more of us had an opportunity to do that. I think a lot of ugly stuff that goes on in the world happens because we're so frustrated we can't be loved for who we are.
Thank you, Giles.